Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Senator Schatz, and really appreciate all of you being here today with us. General Green, I'd like to start by having a conversation about the new Space Rapid Capabilities Office at Kirtland Air Force Base. The new Space RCO is supposed to play an important role in the Air Force's attempt to leverage public-private partnerships and reduce the time to launch national security assets into space. While Space RCO is just starting to get off the ground, I believe that it will need funding for new military construction in order to truly scale up and meet the Air Force's needs. For example, there is a lack of building space adjacent to Kirtland AFRL for companies to utilize. There is also a need for secure compartmentalized information space both for the Space RCO and private companies to utilize in support of the Air Force in Albuquerque. And I'm sure there are many other needs. Will you make it a priority to stand up the Space RCO quickly and expedite the military construction priorities in order to meet the Secretary of the Air Force's goals for space launches?
Yes, sir, we will. As you likely know, we've already identified facilities today as the initial short-term facility options, and we'll be studying all of the things that you described for the way ahead. Yes, sir.
Great. Do you agree that ensuring access to space is a national security priority and that a successful space RCO will be a key component of this effort?
Yes, sir, I do.
Great. And I look
more importantly, the Secretary of the Air Force does.
You know, that's important too. And I also look forward to working with you and the Secretary on this. General Bingham, great to see you again. You announced last year in this committee that White Sands Missile Range, after a long drought of military construction, would be moving forward with the Information Systems Facility included in this year's budget. The project was originally slated for 2023, but the needs for better data management made this project a major priority for the Army and for DOD. General Bingham, how will this new facility improve White Sands Missile Range ability to manage and acquire data for testing?
Thank you, Senator Udall, and great to see you again as well. As you know, having been stationed out at White Sands for about 21 months, I had really come to appreciate that it's an absolute national treasure there. We will be making good use of this new information systems facility. It will actually displace seven separate facilities, so that will make it more efficiently use of information management and its communications capability there on the range. So I know it will be quite an asset for the men and women who will use it.
Appreciate that answer. And do you believe that the new facility could enable White Sands to be a more efficient user of the airspace?
Absolutely.
Mr. Niemeyer, you know New Mexico well. New Mexico has proudly supported its military bases, and I believe the President's military construction budget does a good job supporting the troops who work and train in New Mexico. The budget in New Mexico is also critical to address some of the training shortfalls for pilots. And then this question is for Mr. Niemeyer, General Bingham, and General Green. The pilot shortage is a very serious issue. I think many of you have talked about that before. In New Mexico, the Department of Defense and all the military branches who utilize WSMR need to work together to improve this situation. The F-16 training pipeline through Holloman Air Force Base is one important component to address the pilot shortage. And for years now, I've pressed all stakeholders to work with White Sands to do a better job about deconflicting airspace with Holloman in order to ensure access for Holloman's pilots. In my opinion, the Air Force should move quickly to make the F-16 basing permanent at Holloman. Moving to another base will likely cost additional money for MILCON and will sap the time from the airmen working to alleviate the pilot shortage. Do you agree that the Air Force needs to do everything it can to improve opportunities for training and should work to prevent unneeded future MILCON spending? Mr. Niemeyer, why don't we start with you?
I'll talk more to what I see is what happening in New Mexico happens around the country where you have a friendly competition between test requirements and training requirements. WSMR has a long history of trying to balance that. As we manage a very important part of our national airspace and training and test infrastructure, the WSMR, my job is to work with both services to making sure that we can support the test requirements, which there's no other test range like this in the world, what we have at WSMR, along with what is a very, very desirable piece of airspace for training. We work every day to try to balance that within the Department of Defense. I'll leave it up to the services to talk specifically about the F-16.
Yeah, just brief answers. I'm out of time, but
Yep.
General Bingham and General Green.
Certainly, we want to work with our Air Force comrades and do on a repeated basis out at White Sands to do, as Secretary Niemeyer mentioned, to deconflict that airspace out there. And I think we've got a good system to do that.
Great, thank you. General Green, just fine.
Yes, sir. We agree about the partnership with regard to the airspace, and certainly as we go through the basing process, we'll announce, the Secretary will announce some candidates this year, and we agree with the need to minimize MILCON.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your courtesy.